Okay, it's 6 o'clock, so I'll call the meeting to order. Start with the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. So our first order of business is for the approved the non-public and public minutes from July 16th. So Scott and I have reviewed. I'll make a motion that we approve.
For non-public,
Well, yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the non-public.
I'll second that.
Okay, any corrections?
None that I found on.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I'll move that we approve the public minutes.
I'll second that.
Okay, and you have a correction?
Just a typo. Under other business, line 7A. It's printed as Route 14, should be Route 4.
So close, Roger. All right, so all those in favor of approving with
As
the,
amended.
as amended?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So next is our special town meeting updates. I'll turn that over to Chad.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind everyone that Thursday, at 6 o'clock, the select board will be having a special meeting. Regarding the special town meeting to review. The warrant article that's put forth to. Have the special meeting for accepting the bonds, or the, excuse me. The principal forgiveness, that's not a grant of 1.457 million and the $700,000 grant. For the lead removal, and then also the $690,000 that the town will have to match with on that grant. So just wanted to remind everybody to attend then, and that we'll take in public comment. It is a public hearing.
Do you want to talk about the additional meetings at this time or?
Well, we can, yeah, I mean, basically, the goal, if the select board moves the question forward on Thursday, the deliberative session based on timing of notices will happen on August 24th. And the actual vote in the special town meeting will be on September 24th, the Tuesday. So that will be the 2 dates going forward with that.
These dates were set by the state. We don't have any.
Well, they were actually, the attorney, when we put it into the court. In order to have the meetings completed and voted on prior to September 30th, which is the deadline for accepting the grants. This was the minimum schedule we could do. We had to have the vote by the 24th, and then the certain amount of notice, the 30 days for the deliberative session, and then. The notices for the other 2 meetings. We had the budget committee version. Last Thursday. Where's the Tuesday? It was Tuesday. Last Tuesday, we had that, and it was a unanimous vote in favor. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, do we have any questions on that? All right, so next up, we have a request to reconsider appropriations for voted approved non-town warrant articles timing. Is that you, Sandra?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, okay, thank you. I'm Sandra Hayden from Canaan, and thank you for allowing me to come before the select board tonight. I'm here in the capacity of board chair for the Muskoma Community Health Center. As you know, we've operated the center for 7 years now, and just last November, Health First assumed operations of the primary medical side of the center, and we reopened the dental program last October. Both Health First and Muskoma Community Health, I think, are very valuable members of the community and valuable assets from the standpoint of not just our patients in the community, but also for the purpose of attracting new businesses and making the whole town of Canaan a little more attractive to any companies that might want to invest and open a business in Canaan. The purpose for my address, as you know, is to request that the funds be released from the warrant article that was voted at the town election, and making a plea for the monies to be released now rather than waiting until the fourth quarter, as I believe the select board had decided to do a few months ago. The rationale is because we did open the new dental program. And we are only one of 2 dental providers in the state of New Hampshire that accepts Medicaid. And we've always accepted all people who come to our facility for treatment. We don't deny anyone because they're uninsured or unable to pay a bill. So fully 50% of our patient load is either uninsured or underinsured. Our Medicaid component of that is roughly 20% of that patient group. Medicaid was approved in April of 2024 in New Hampshire to be able to cover people for dental services. And so we've been providing Medicaid services to Medicaid insured people since April for the last 4 or 5 months. The Medicaid payments are very slow and sluggish. We're now carrying about $40,000 in just Medicaid accounts receivable. And that's only for the 4 months that they've been accepting dental patients. So we are facing really a severe cash flow. And that's the reason for my coming before the board today. The residents graciously voted the $10,000 warrant article for the health center. And we really need it now rather than in the fourth quarter in order to meet our payrolls. Each year we give out we have given out over $100,000 in free care to people in the community who can't afford to pay for their services. We're still funding those people on the dental side as well now. Sadly, we have never had the luxury of being able to have a strategic fund, which most nonprofits are able to do. But given the drain on our resources for caring for needy people, we have not been able to build a little nest egg or a strategic or capital reserve fund, as most nonprofits have. For all of these reasons, we're respectfully requesting that the select board consider release of the $10,000 warrant article funds in the next week or so, sooner than later. Last year, the check was dated September the 5th. And I'm coming before you to ask if you might be able to provide the appropriation, at your earliest opportunity. And I thank you very much for your consideration, and I want to thank everyone in the town for supporting the health center over these past 10 years through planning and implementation. And also to let everyone know, we are having a Community Appreciation Day tomorrow at the center from 3 to 6. So everyone's invited. There will be hot dogs and, drinks and things for the kids, tattoos that are not permanent tattoos, obviously. Hopefully a fire truck and perhaps one of the ambulances. I'm not sure about that yet, but it should be a good celebration, and it's 3 to 6 tomorrow. If any of you can attend, we'd love to have you. Thank you.
Thank you. So I just want to start by saying I agree wholeheartedly with your statement that it is a very valuable resource to our town and that it certainly makes it more attractive to live or have a business here. I know Carrie Ann is not here tonight. Chet, can you tell us, are we currently using our TAN?
No, the tax anticipation note was taken out at the end of May
Okay,
and we paid it back early in July. We will be retaking it out at the end of October, beginning of November, because the delay or the built-in delay for the new budget season, we've been operating on a budget that's significantly higher than this was not included in this last tax bill. What was approved, so we're gonna be still short about the same amount of money for November and December.
and do you know what the total is for various social service agencies that were approved in warrant articles?
50,000.
50,000 total. Do you have any questions, Scott?
My only question I mean, biggest thing is. Stated last year payment was drafted September 5th. So essentially asking for a 30-day. Earlier. It's a matter is. Does the budget allow for that where the balance sets?
Well, I think also, if we move forward and approve that, then we need to pay all of them. So that's,
Well, that's just what
yeah, that's where you were headed, good.
that's where I'm headed. It's that, because we are over 30 days from where they paid last year.
What, sorry,
Yeah.
got caught for a second. What were you asking? When or how much?
Scott was asking.
Last year they were paid September 5th.
Yeah, the years before that, there was, most of them were mid-December, then there was one October, then one September. They moved them, they moved up each time.
And if we pay one, pretty much gonna have to pay,
Okay, have to is not, but
no,
we should be, if we're
We
going to be, if we're going to do this, we should treat all of them the same. I know it was like an unwritten policy that it was fourth quarter. Was when those went out, but over the last couple of years, there's been a little bit of variation to it. But if we do decide to do this and treat all of those same situations the same, we would be putting out $50,000, which we will borrow against in November.
And do we have any projection of how long we will borrow and what rate are we at with the TAN?
Please don't quote me, but it was around 5.
I believe it were 5, 5
It was around 5.
I think where I struggle is that I obviously see that, like I said, see the value in the health center. I have difficulty making a decision that will put additional tax burden on residents of the town if we incur additional debt service to pay out the warrant article. So I think I need more information from Carrie Ann before I would be able to make a decision.
I mean, her and I had talked that we actually, after we got the tax payment and we paid the other one off. She said that when we originally did the analysis, we thought we were gonna need 800,000 the first time and 400,000 next time. We're gonna need about the same both times because our cash is borderline. We basically have no undesignated fund balance. You know, we have like $150,000, so we don't have the ability to carry these until we get the tax payments. So, I mean, I know that those are the numbers. So we are gonna have to borrow against it, and that's just a question for the board as to whether they want to move forward with that.
I'm not prepared to make a decision without getting a little more information. I don't know.
What-
Chris
What would you like to
feels
know?
well. I guess I want to see in writing, like what we're anticipating that we'll borrow, what our rate is, how long we have it outstanding.
She didn't come. I didn't know she was.
Yeah.
No, we can
So-
provide that to you.
Cause I think my first obligation in this position, is to our tax base and I have to meet that obligation. So,
So you wanna, I think, because I think we have one available, a cash flow. For the rest of the year, and an estimated cash flow.
yeah, so if we could revisit at the next select board meeting, which is 2 weeks out, but
Right.
if we made a decision.
Should be able on Thursday.
No, can't do that.
Can't do that.
That's-
It would be on the 20th, and we do have a public hearing to start the meeting, and
Mm-hmm.
then we'll be having our select board meeting after that. That's for the Potato Road Bridge.
Yes,
So it'll be, but we're gonna have other things on the agenda that night, so.
Mhm. That's where I'm at. I don't know if
Okay.
you want, if you agree, you want to make a motion, it's up to you. What do you want to do?
my only concern on this is. Did you plan on making these payments? 1st of September like was done last year?
No, when we were talking, in the beginning, and we took the tax anticipation note. It was stated. Both by the select board, but even prior to that, that we always pay them in the fourth quarter, and that was. The plan, we pay them when we start getting our tax payments in December is what the intention was. So that we don't have to go using available cash. But, it's really just a choice. I mean, we're not gonna be, we're gonna be up in the $600,000 to $900,000
Yes,
borrowing level at this point. That will go into the first 2 weeks of January, I would imagine. The way it's set up, so.
and so you wouldn't have offhand right off with the monetary impact at this point to pay it. Is it gonna be any different than paying it in fourth quarter?
Well, we're gonna be paying an additional interest on $50,000.
So you're saying in order to pay it, it will have to be borrowed earlier?
We may have.
I mean, it might be,
Yeah.
by a week or two, maybe. But the issue is we're still paying on the 50.
Yes,
Ahead, and then we would have probably a week or two earlier. That would be my guess. Cause we run about. For non-capital items, we run in the low 200s per month. Is our expense line. So just for running the basic operations, a couple 100,000, 250 maybe. But Carrie Ann has all the exact numbers, but those are the round numbers.
Yeah, so I just think based on that, I mean, I would still like to see the
Mhm.
cash flow analysis, but based on that, I wouldn't be inclined to vote to pay the petition warrant articles.
Yeah, I was just, well, I've been just looking for the interest rate for you.
I mean, I know they're higher, yeah.
It's in that neighborhood. But yeah, that's where we are, and that's a decision we make. So,
cause I think this is another one of those things that's gotta be discussed for when we're going to make warrant article payments.
well,
Or,
and
I mean, annually.
one of the recommendations, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, is, we have some policies that were put in place, in the late 2005 to 10 timeframe. But we haven't adhered to them, and any of these kind of things that become a question, we probably should actually. Start developing some procedures, at least whether it's a formal policy or not, I'm not sure, but some definitive procedures and, I'm okay with however that goes, but it's just, we have to come up with something and be consistent. I think that's the goal.
And I think historically in the past and having sat on a number of boards that have requested funding. It's more to support programs, I think, so it's a unique situation, that. I think, most of them, and I don't wanna speak out of turn, but I think most of them don't require it for cash flow to get through. They're not in that situation that you are right now. where you're behind, or Medicaid is behind in paying, so. I think probably fourth quarter was not a huge impact necessarily in the past.
Yeah, that's my understanding as how that was and it was set up like a few years ago. That was the
Many years
time,
ago, I'm
yeah.
sure, yeah.
So, yeah, I'm just looking for direction if if you want to hold off and do it at the next meeting and have a conversation, or if you want to vote tonight. So we can just,
Well, at this point, you've already paid, you're not,
Right, but if you, all right, so then I'll make a motion, if you want a second, you can, I will move that we decline. And that we pay
in the
when we feel that it will not have a bigger impact on our debt service that is then in turn passed on to our tax base.
I'd like to see it further look,
Yeah,
bring it up next meeting.
okay,
That way we're not just declining it for another 3 months.
okay. That's fine.
So do you want to move to table it?
I will move to table for
I-
next meeting
I'll
for where
second
we can
that.
get some little more concrete numbers.
You will have a cash flow projection.
Yeah.
All right, so all those in favor of tabling it and revisiting in 2 weeks? Aye. Okay. Next we have FEMA determinations.
As I had stated, I think it was 2 meetings ago, we had received a likelihood of denial for 3 of the 9 projects that were related to the 2019 storm. And now I have the official
Denial.
Denial. Basically, there's a couple of things that we don't have any documentation to prove. One was, especially on the transfer station bridge and area where that channel all ran out, was the fact that we didn't bring, would have to argue that we had an emergency situation to have it included, but because the work was done a month, like 3 to 4 weeks later, and we didn't have the environmental, historical, and preservation group in to look at it, that's an automatic denial. And then the other piece was there was the possibility of NRCS providing a grant for it, and we were denied for that just recently. We didn't approach it at the time. So these are just technical issues that we didn't follow at that time and don't have any documentation to back them up. And we had the same issue on the other one, which was the preventive flood measures. Orange Brook embankment was one, and then the other was the Orange Brook debris removal, which is the bridge, was tied to the bridge. So all of this totaled up to about $140,000 of work that we asked for and were denied for, but we did receive between $200,000 and $300,000 of funding that happened at the time. So these were the final 3 pieces of that project. So
Some of this could have been solved with one of them in pictures.
So basically, and the other interesting thing, which is something we're beginning to work on, is basically taking pictures and status reports of all of our existing infrastructure now.
Yes.
We actually have all of these things. It actually makes a big difference in these conversations. And one of the things that we're gonna want to ultimately do with all culverts, all bridges, and any of these appurtenances is to get the GPS locations and have an actual inventory of what we have.
Well, one of the most important things that I brought up here over a year ago was the fact that when you have any storm damage that could even go to FEMA, you need to have full set of pictures before you do anything of the damages and
Right.
the work that's done.
Yeah, no, and basically, these are all the things that we now are aware of and we will
Yeah.
try to address so that we're ready for the next time and make sure that we don't miss out on any of these reimbursement funds.
Brian,
Did I understand correctly? We put in for 9 and 3 were denied, but 6
There
were
were-
approved?
Okay, the way they do it they gave us, there's the number that goes with the storm.
Right.
And then we had 9 projects that were within that storm, 9 areas of damage.
Yep.
6 were approved and paid, 3 were not, the last 3. So, and they were also, because there's some issues with, when you go through over the transfer station bridge, you can see the area that was all cut, the wood was cut. None of that was all authorized and pre-done to show that it was actually going to have an effect, and it becomes a mitigation issue.
Yes.
Even though we had to do something like that to get there, we might have overdone it a little.
Well, like
Yeah.
you're saying, before and after the issues are.
Yeah.
Imperative to have some data.
Yeah, no, and really it comes down to inventories. We have to
Yeah.
have a much better infrastructure inventory system, and that's one of the things we want to work on.
You know, especially with the magnitude of, just the culvert magnitude is,
Oh, yeah, we have, it's like 500 of them, so.
yeah. it's
There's
crazy.
gotta be,
You know,
I
so,
had that many in.
and that doesn't,
That didn't include driveways.
That's
just
exactly
under
right. That's
public
just-
road was.
right.
Especially since I remember the last time we talked culverts, which was a long time back, but this one time that I remember. There was a significant amount that were in need of
right.
serious repair.
Yeah.
Well, and our new, I call him the highway supervisor because he's not an elected road agent now,
Yeah.
but he is, we're working on starting to identify this, especially, and we're starting with the roads that are most at risk and need the most repair work.
Yeah.
Because one of my pet peeves is paving over stuff that's gonna fall apart in 5 years.
Yeah.
Or
So-
covering up what is falling apart.
Exactly. So these are the things that we want to try and start to get our arms around. So this is what we're beginning to build a program like that.
Especially if we're gonna consider the change in climate, which could cause these things to really be a problem. With
The is, and as much as that, you know, the weather has changed and you get shorter duration, higher volume storms.
Yeah.
But the bigger issue is, you know, when you think about when towns were, a lot of the roads were built and a lot of these things went on, we're at the end of the life of those, and if you haven't kept up.
Right.
We're kind of behind the 8 ball at this point.
The other thing that we've gotta pay attention to, that FEMA finally come on board with. Up until 5-6 years ago, FEMA would replace in kind what was destroyed.
Yeah.
If it was inadequate and that's why it was destroyed, they would pay you to replace inadequate.
Right.
They have now finally gotten on board where that they will pay, and that's why you now have your mitigation work being done, that you may upgrade for what the flows actually are. Also, we had the problem, you have to maintain with FEMA a 10-year mitigation plan. Unfortunately, a number of towns, those plans expired during COVID. They would not extend those dates. So mitigation plans had to be completely redone before they would even consider work that was done with the storms. So there was delays, and that put them over their budgets along with the damages down south. And
Still for batting 600 for that, that's pretty good.
yes,
So we did okay,
Yeah.
and when you really think about it. I mean, not all for the same reason, but. The town, and you know, I don't know any town that's ever gotten this, but we have 3 bridges that are gonna be rebuilt. To the tune of about $11 million, and we're only gonna have about a $200,000 match on all of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, we're doing okay, we're gonna take care of a lot of the mitigation on the bridge side of it. But we just we gotta get our future plans and our flood resiliency in place.
It's been good work, but it's a daily grind.
We'll get there.
Yep.
Okay, Chet, you have an update on facility repairs and upgrades?
Yes, we have a situation with our new server room. As part of the process, actually just before our lightning strike, we had moved the server downstairs into the back room just off of Carrie Ann's office. And it runs 85, 90 degrees down there. because it's generating quite a bit of heat. So we talked about getting a look at, my first assumption was, well, if we can get a multi-split, we'd be able to put a head down in there and cool it off and be able to heat and cool and take care of some things. And also, for not much more money, put a head up in the main office, so we don't have to have the through the window thing that actually affects security and everything. We just have one of those R2D2 units with the hose going out the window. So we got a price, and I'm not suggesting that this is the final price because we're getting other quotes at the same time, but just wanted to get the board's thinking on moving forward with this. But basically, the one thing that I didn't realize, the server rooms have a slightly different system that they have to have. It's a lower ambient cooling system.
Yeah, for
That will-
humidity.
Yeah, that will modify and take care of the entire environment. And that's about $7,400 for the server room. And we can't piggyback them, which is what I had hoped to do with a multi-split. So basically, we would, in order to fix the office, it'd be another $7,200 where we take the unit that's outside right now, replace it with a multi-split and just add one head. So it's like $14,000. My recommendation is that we take care of the server room in this context, and we can talk about this for the budget season. Is where I am. I don't think, given the cost of the servers and things like that, that we can, and this was planned a couple of years ago. They got all the wiring, got it all set down there, but this part was left out, and I think we're gonna have to deal with getting the HVAC correct in the server room.
We don't, we're gonna have moisture problem that's gonna.
Yeah.
Be create more issues.
So my intention is hopefully by the next meeting, I'll know if I have any more prices or which ones are in, and then have you guys decide. But I just wanted to make sure that we were, before I continue with the process, that we were on board with the concept of it's something we need to address in the shorter term. So if you are agreeable, that's what we will do.
Okay, town administrator update.
On your desk, I put the two quotes that we got in for aggregate. And given our truck situation currently, we did get priced both delivered and not delivered. So we'll probably have a mix of both. Pike had by about $1 a ton is cheaper than Twin State, which is the other one that turned in a bid. So I'm recommending we go with Pike. And it's about $9.95 per ton for, if we pick it up, $20.95 a ton delivered. We will be about 1,000 yards short with what's in the budget right now. My plan is to get us with the right amount of sand. We have a little bit of a cushion for cash right now that we have in other parts of that budget. And I think we need to make sure we have enough sand for the winter. But
If we're running that tight in the budget, we've got to get enough sand to get us through.
correct,
January.
yes,
So in the past, we had, and probably before you were here, we had talked about getting prices for this and then getting prices for independent trucking to compare. So I don't know if we have.
we're getting a couple of quotes right now, but it's not like, we're not getting a whole trucking company to come because they all are,
Right,
we're getting a few here and there.
No. I
So,
understand. I
and
just-
it looks like we're gonna get a really good price for a trailer one. So that's why I said it's probably gonna be a hybrid of this.
Okay,
First, we're looking at the material costs and this is where we're gonna buy from and lock that in. And then anytime we can get trucking that's gonna do better than what's on here, we will take it.
okay. And these are all of the things that Scott, I know Scott had added something to the list to get it.
Yeah, this is all of them.
Okay. This means nothing to me, so.
Yeah.
I'll let you make the motion.
No, I'd recommend by these prices that we use Pike as primary.
Right. And
I'm not gonna say don't get anything from Twin State, because depending on what's happening out there, when you send a truck out. You can save that amount of money by not dealing with the traffic in West down in 12A at night.
So do we sign a contract though, or?
no, he's just gonna lock in the pricing for us.
Okay,
I'm just gonna let them know they won the bid and this is the price that's locked in, and there's no contract that we have to buy a certain amount, or
okay,
we're getting a unit price locked in.
okay. So what was your motion, Scott? Was it an actual motion?
I'll move that we use Pike as primary supplier.
All right, I will second that. All those in favor?
I,
Good.
the only thing to keep an eye on Pike with is unexpected price increases.
Right.
That's why I'm saying we use them as primary, because I had problems with them in the past where they signed a contract with us and then 2 months later came in and said, this is your new price.
No. That, they won't get many more quotes from me if they do that.
Well,
They said he'll lock it in, so we'll.
they
see
didn't
how-
get any business from me for 2 years, and then they wanted to know why they hadn't seen me.
Right,
And I said, because your word is worthless, so then all of a sudden the prices started coming down and talking.
okay, meeting house, Wi-Fi and fire alarm. We have the Wi-Fi in the meeting house at this time. One of the things that we've been talking to Alarmco, I'll have my quote before we have our next meeting. But installing the fire alarm panel in there. In order to purchase a fire alarm system that's actually good down to 0 degrees, they're extremely expensive.
Yes,
So for the short term, I asked for a quote on a standard fire alarm system. That he said, if we really want to, they can power it down for the winter, we can do that. I'm sure when I talk to Primex, they're gonna say, well, you should be leaving it on all year. And one of the things that we will have to look at in the future, which, as I brought up the last meeting, given the building and it not getting the use. Looking at what it would cost to actually put a little bit of heat in there to keep it from freezing and things like that. So these are things that we'll want to address during the budget season. But we do want to get the fire alarm installed. I will be bringing that to you, but there are some limitations as it stands.
was
right
that unit itself be a matter of what it would cost just to have an alcove, heated alcove where it's located?
Well, and that's possible, and these are
Yeah.
all things that we're gonna look at, so I just wanted to let you know that that's the one limitation we have right now. But see, the question is because we're piped to all the heads and the detectors, that's what I don't know. So we will be getting that information as part of our quote.
Yep.
Just a couple staff updates. Garen Goodwin accepted our offer to work as our mechanic. He starts on September 9th. Raymond Gray starts on Monday. He's our CDL driver we hired about a month ago. And then Mason Tucker has accepted to work as a water sewer apprentice starting on the 19th of August.
That's very exciting.
Yeah, and on the building inspector side, I have someone who called and has expressed interest, and we're meeting next week.
Okay,
We'll see how that goes.
and that leaves us where?
That leaves us with sort of one position open. It's a half of, like, it's the one CDL, one highway person, it's part-time.
Okay,
That's the one thing that we're gonna be looking at, so. But other than that, I think if we hire a building inspector, we're
back
kind of
on.
fully staffed. Phone update, we have now converted the phones in this building to the new system. As some of the lines were being ported, we had. The secondary line went to the fire alarm panel. Typically, that's a hard copper wire, and we had actually 3 phone companies providing service to this building. And when the numbers got ported, that one got ported as well, but Alarmco is gonna come in here and look at getting the other backup, but. The other issue there is, evidently, we've been told by our alarm company for like 6 or 8 years that we need to upgrade our panels. They've gotten really old. They're not capable of taking the new system. They've gotten to that point. So we're getting quotes for the upgrade these panels to get them to the current standards. So we'll see what that number comes in at. I had a question come up today that I don't was an interesting question related to the green over here and the political signs. Evidently, they're kind of in the way of, I think it's the farmer's market and things like that. There's kind of issues like that. And then there was conversation that, you're not allowed to remove them, but then they're supposed to ask permission to put them on town property. The
They
question
can be
is
within the state's right of way, but not the town
town's
without-
portion, right?
without permission. That's what I had been told in the past.
Okay, because I was just what is the board's thoughts on the political
It
signs
looks
in
like a
areas?
sign farm out there.
Yes, it
Yes.
does.
Yeah.
So it was just it came up, I figured I'll throw it in and just have the conversation.
Has it been like that and other?
I think,
It seems.
I think a
Really?
lot of it come about because of Old Home Days weekend. They loaded it.
I'm loaded from it.
Yeah, more so
Okay.
since the middle
A
of
lot
last
of the
week.
vendors were having a very hard time this weekend.
Yeah.
They were on their way.
So it's just
So can we just confirm that,
Yeah.
what's not said, and if there,
if they're in the stage right away and there's nothing we can do, then there's nothing we can do. So I'll find out. It came up, I brought it up just so we'd have the conversation. And the last item, I think, and I already mentioned it, we're gonna be looking to some of the more pressing policy issues we need to update. There's things that I found that are like 15 years old and they need some updating and they actually will have impacts on what we're doing now. One of those is the fund balance policy. One is, there's several of them. And then we're also going to be trying to coordinate and consolidate the personnel policy. Because one of the things that's an issue, first, we're going to make sure that the personnel policy has everything it needs to have, but we have multiple departments that have specialty pieces attached to them. So we want to make sure that everybody's operating under the same personnel
Mhm.
policy and then having an addendum, like a fire addendum, a highway addendum, a police addendum, so that it's a little bit cleaner. Right now, we kind of like have them in different places.
and those will all go through legal review?
Yes.
When they're brought to us or approved?
Yes.
Thank you.
And our legal firm Drummond has a personnel attorney, so
Perfect.
we will be looking at it that way. And that is all I have.
Okay. Anyone have any other business?
Hi.
Hi.
My name's Karen Webb, this is my husband Gary, and, we would like to speak to the reservoir boundary extension. if that's okay. I'm super nervous, so I'm reading this. When we bought our property in 2015, our dock sat right along the side of the reservoir. With just enough space for a kayak in between, so we decided to replace the dock and move it over about 10 feet to give a more meaningful distance to the reservoir and to make the dock more useful. So with this new boundary now, we can't use the south side of our dock. You can't get a kayak in there. The grandkids can't jump off the front of the dock. I mean, it's all closed off now. So as a butters, we were a little disappointed that we didn't get maybe a written notice before this happened. So we could have an opportunity to discuss it, but we're left wondering if there could not have been a different solution for the water pipe. And now we're also wondering if there's what sort of resolution to our loss of use. Or we could manage to fix it.
Chet would like to respond.
Just so you, and I'm not sure if you've seen it yet or not, but according to John Coffey, who's the person who set those. On Sunday night after dark, they were put back in their original location.
After dark.
Yeah, because that was the time he had, and it was like,
Yeah.
he said the loons yelled at him all night. But he did say he put them back to the original. Buffer.
Is that temporary then, or is that?
No, that's permanent.
That's where they're gonna stay.
That's where they're gonna
That's the
stay.
boundary now.
Yes.
Well, they haven't been moved back though.
He said,
John said he moved them back. We can coordinate with John, but he went out there and said he was putting them back in the original locations.
We can take a picture and send it to you. Chuck.
Okay, no, that's fine, and I could have John go out there, meet with you, so you guys can figure out, cause he intended. And, you know, I don't know if he didn't get that one in the right exact spot, but he intended to get them all back in the original locations.
So Karen and I can be confident this issue is closed. that-
The issue's closed, and if it's not where if you think it should be today, then we'll get John out there to talk to you, but the intention is it's going back to the original location.
So we appreciate that very much.
Okay.
But I'm a little confused because I'm under the impression the state required that the boundary be moved further north.
I know that they went back and revisited it and had conversations, and they might have agreed to put it back. I don't know,
Perfect.
I don't know the details of the technical, how it got back to where it is, but it's back where it was.
Would say, the conversation I had with John. The state notified him because of the relocation into deeper water with the water intake. They had to move the buoy, so he moved them.
Right.
And then when it was questioned why they're out there, the state said, put them back.
Okay.
Yeah.
We are happy. Thank you. No, we're done.
Must have some sort of documentation that shows where the boundary actually is that we can provide to you.
It's a
We have
straight
that.
line.
I mean, it.
I mean,
where it Is as of right now.
Right, John should we should be able to get a GPS location as to where they're sitting right now and put that on a map.
Cause it's a straight line from the two
Yeah.
attachment points across, which gives about 1,200 feet. Of length of the reservoir.
Yep.
And that's where it was across. Now, maybe the line didn't get tightened back up as tight, so you might still have some drift. In them, it's
No,
something that,
the buoys haven't been moved, Scott. And unless I don't understand where they should be, I mean,
if he did them after, if that's when he had time, try to do them after dark, he might not have had an accurate line of sight
So,
that he was working
They're,
at too.
if they're not where they're supposed to be back in the original location, that's where we are.
which is 1,200 feet and it's a straight line between the two signs.
Right.
Because according to what I talked with John was now because of the depth of the water that the intake is in. Because it was in only chest deep water.
Yeah,
Now it's in about 20 feet of water. The state agreed that the depth of water over the top of that will not interfere by having the buoys where they originally were.
don't you love common sense, Scott?
Remember, we're talking the state. That might
I
also.
know, I know.
With all due respect to the webs, I think we're missing a big piece here. They, I think rightfully said, hey, where was the notice? We've apparently decided to move the buoys, and now we've decided to move them back. Based on conversations that, at least as far as I know, and I sit on the planning board. And we're looking at a drinking water protection ordinance. None of that has been made widely public. Which, you know, whatever the state is doing, whether it's reversing itself or whatever. I think the Webbs, along with everybody else in town, deserved an explanation of why. You know, we were thinking about or actually moving the buoys in the first place. And now why we're moving them back and what the impact is. What you're saying, Scott, makes a great deal of sense. If the pipe, and the pipe has always been, well. When they extended the pipe, it was always with the intent that it would be deeper. At least that was my understanding back when the whole.
Yes, that was the
started.
whole engineering to get away from
And
sedimentation.
it makes some common sense that if the pipe is deeper, you know, perhaps the surface doesn't need to be. You know, perhaps the buoys need to stay where they were originally. But I think all of that needed to be more publicly explained. Both the original decision to move it and the decision to move it back.
And the fact that the buoys weren't talked about, because what I typically how the state works. Is they had public hearings on the design, which would have had the buoys marked on it, and they figure everybody's gonna know, but it wasn't talked about specifically. And
Chad, I was here for the public hearing when they were talking about
Yeah.
extending it. I do not recall any discussion, and I may have missed it, but I don't recall any discussion about moving the buoys.
No, I'm saying there probably was not discussion. The issue is they put it on the plan and they consider everybody has to go find it for themselves. I mean, that's how these things all typically go. And I guess no one really picked up the fact that they were moving, you know, so it just is a design issue and it wasn't talked about.
Well,
And I agree, it should have been talked about.
Yeah,
It's,
I will just say that there have been,
right,
and, you know, a lot of times it is the state. But I think. I would like to see us err on the side of more information, more public disclosure.
Yeah.
Rather than assuming that, well, you'll read the fine print.
Couple of things. First of all, as the property owner, I really appreciate that perspective, because then we don't have to sort of, what did everybody mean? The other thing is, I don't know if everybody's aware, I've got a copy of the NHDES, approval, February 10, 22. And it talks about a bunch of conditions that the approval is dependent on. And one of them is, provide specification and details for demarcation buoys. I don't know if everybody knows that, I don't know if it was done, but since we're talking about buoys, I thought that was some information that we should be aware of.
that's actually the kind that they are and how they're constructed. They wanted specifications, not location.
Oh, not where they are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
specifications are how they're built, where are you buying them, what are they made of?
Yes. So the state wasn't aware then that this is the part that's confusing to me is. Like you, how the buoys got moved in the first place.
Mike,
So-
if you go by typical things, the state and the engineer were talking during the design process and the permitting process.
Yeah,
And one engineer said to the other, hey, we need to move this over a little bit, and they put it on the plan and,
didn't understand the consequences.
right,
So
Yeah.
what
All right.
year was this done?
I don't know. What year was the permit? What's the date of that
22, wasn't it?
permit?
February 10, 22.
Okay,
Okay, because I think, how do we revisit that to ensure that something like this doesn't happen going forward? Like Tom said, that we can have a better understanding and be more transparent. I mean, I know if I had waterfront property and my access were changed, I would not.
I think it's a
Thank you.
it's a staff and commission issue to say, are we asking all the question, and is our engineer giving us all the information? You know, at the public hearing, like they're talking about they get caught up in the technical stuff and they don't pick those things up, but we have to over
We
time.
try to be more diligent, but I can tell you from personal experience, working with DES in the state. That you'll have an engineer. And I got the one because I said, please give me a written statement before you leave as to direction that you're giving me. 1 month later, I got a cease and desist order from him. For work that I had done because it didn't conform with their engineering standard. And I said, here's your directive. This is one of the problems you get at the state. You got too many engineers, too many cooks in the kitchen. And they don't talk before they send you some of these letters. And some of them end up getting rescinded.
Right, because my thing is it's. When I talk about our diligence isn't finding it. Our diligence is asking all the questions like a checklist.
trying to
Like
be
those
sure to-
kind- It's like, what are the impacts to abutters? Like, when you do a permit for a subdivision, it's how does that impact the abutter? All these questions have to exist at all these public hearings.
Yeah,
And
and
how,
we had a similar situation before Scott was on the board where we were presented with options from the state about closing Gristmill Hill, and it seemed like, okay, we need to close it before someone falls through it. We voted to close it, and then the next meeting, we had, all the people that would be impacted came and spoke, and I'm like, okay, we need to revisit our decision. But I think that needs to be something that we really consider is the impact that it. will
Yeah, I
have
mean,
on-
yeah, and we don't have any. I mean, I'm not sure in detail what the planning commission has, but. All projects have impact questionnaires or
Yes.
something, and we have to find, how does it impact the butters? Well, you don't have to have any more information to that. You just gotta go, okay. Okay, Mr. Engineer, how does this impact this person over here and this person over here? So that's the generalized questions. We need to have. Some sort of program that we can go through and do that, and maybe the planning commission can help us with. aligning those.
I'm sure we're ready. The one thing I will say, and this again was before you came, Chet, but, you know, I think the example of the Goose Pond Dam may be a good one. In that, you know, there were engineering decisions that got made. And without as much public input as there should have been. And the state was willing to come back. At the request of the select board, as I remember. The state was willing to come back and do sort of a second round of, okay, here's. You know, and we had a pretty extensive, as I remember, public hearing. Because folks around Goose Pond were not happy, their waterfront was being impacted, but the state sent some engineers. And spent some time answering questions, but the select board at the time had to push for that to happen. The state wasn't gonna do it on its own. So, that to me is kind of a good template for.
Yeah.
You know, if you're gonna have something that impacts. You know, a lot of people, particularly around the lakes. You know, or roads. It just seems, you know, the more public input you can get. Or at least the more opportunity for the public, they may or may not show up, but at least if they're given the opportunity, then, you know, if they don't show up, then that's on them.
Well, the one thing that's going on with, and this is, and it all depends on whose money's involved in many cases. But with the bridges, we're having a public hearing again on the 20th. On the Potato Road Bridge. Well, every abutter received a letter of notification that we're gonna be talking about that bridge. So those are the kind of, we have to get some procedures in place to get people notified. And then we have to have the people that are there, whether it's planning commission members, select board members saying, here's the questions we ask. Like, I've done a lot of construction and stuff, so I know a lot of, but not everybody does. And, you know, we gotta.
Well, you
make
and I
sure-
meeting with our own engineers.
Yeah.
On that meeting, we asked a lot of questions that they weren't necessarily ready to hear. But they were valid questions that just between he and I, our experience of what we've dealt with. Over the years with it, that we got some answers that it's gonna make a difference.
And basically, and I think the process and I don't know how we formalize this, but the process we're going through with HEB and these bridges is what we want to do, because they came to the town and said, we want to have a conversation about, these are the options. Which one makes the most engineering sense? And we kind of give them a direction, not because there's decisions being made, but so that they can focus some attention and get the answers for that, so we can have the questions answered that we might have for each option. You know, what are the things that we need to do? So that's how we want to get to this, and then get people notified and get the questions answered. Because I also believe, and one of the things that we've been trying to do anytime we have one of these things happen, is getting the information out to the public, even in the newsletter. Like, you know, basically every major project, we can do a fact sheet for. These are the questions we've been asked, here's the answers to them, and you post them. You know what I mean? So we have to get to that point, because that'll also bring out the other people. What about this? You know,
Ryan's been waiting very patiently.
sorry about that.
You mentioned, the state and the engineer, do you mean their engineer? Where are we in any of that?
Our engineer, but when you go by the last 2 years, I think it was, once the engineer was sent to do there wasn't really much town involvement at that
Yeah,
point. It
yeah.
was the engineer talking right to the
He was
state
autonomous.
engineers, yeah.
Okay, okay.
Because they do a lot of talking, even in this situation, because they gotta come up with some solutions that the state's gonna be acceptable before they bring it to us.
Well, like you said, it's the process, it's the FYI sheets or
Right.
fact sheets or.
Yeah.
Do you know, so with the imagery thing that we're talking about, I'm just looking at the New Hampshire state, bathymetry
Mhm.
maps.
Okay,
I see our lake on it. But I don't see reservoir information. Do we know where that information is supposed to
it
be?
would be in DES under that permit.
I'm looking at DES as well, so I
Okay.
don't see that, but I'll look.
You basically look up the permit. They're not gonna show the picture necessarily of the process, but it'll have somewhere the engineering plans may be. I don't know
Oh,
if they put everything up or not.
I'm somewhat familiar with the Hampshire DES.
Okay.
because I've worked with them for a while,
Okay, sounds good.
so.
There is a state regulation that defines the reservoir as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I just have a follow-up question. So
Thank you.
besides just our word that the buoys are supposed to be moved, what can we provide the webs for documentation? So,
Well, I'm gonna talk to John tomorrow and put him in touch with Webbs, right?
Yeah.
Sorry about
Yeah.
that. So that we can make sure that we're in the right place, and then we're gonna talk to John about, okay, let's figure out how we're gonna identify this.
Yeah, because there are anchor points.
Yeah,
And it was always described as a straight line across that. Now, a lot of times it takes more than one person to be able to do that sighting
Right.
and location.
so we gotta get we'll get the confirmation, get it, make sure everybody kind of agrees where we are. And then we work on,
and so Chet's email is on our website. If you want to email him the best way to reach out to you.
I will.
Okay, thank you.
Sadie, Scott, and Chad, thank you very much.
No
We
problem.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Anyone have anything else? No, okay. I think we do have a couple of things for non-public. So I will move to adjourn and go into non-public.
Second motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.